Okay, so here we are, and this is In Conservation with. I'm struggling with technology, as you can guess. My name is David Linder, also known as the Urban Birder. And if you are watching this in the future, I hope the world is a lovely place. And secondly, you're probably watching it on YouTube. And if you are, it'd be great if you could like and subscribe to In Conservation with. And as I always say, I can't afford all the bells and whistles, with all the things popping up. I can't afford it. This is totally low tech, but it's all about talking really more than flashy imagery and icons and stuff like that. This is In Conservation with. By the way, for those new to In Conservation with, and for those maybe possibly looking on Facebook, it's all about conversations with people within the world of conservation who are movers and shakers, who are out there doing stuff that's incredible. And some of these people actually may not even be conservationists. I've had conversations with people who have just dipped in, they've written something or said something that's really interesting and affects our world. So this is what it's all about. And it was born out of frustration during lockdown, during the pandemic, when I was incarcerated in my apartment in Spain, in Extremadura, in southwest Spain. And I was on my own and I couldn't speak much Spanish. Nothing has changed. Um, and then I can speak to neighbors, and I thought, you know what? I want to talk to people in the world. I want to ask them questions that I never heard anyone ask them before. And that's where we are now. So I am very happy to introduce you to Laura Kammermeier, who is a woman I have known for some time now. She is the marketing manager
Mhm.
at the Cornell Laboratory for Ornithology. And I think it's best actually if I ask Laura, how are you and where are you?
Well, first of all, I am great. I do remember those days back during the pandemic, and I'd see some of your Facebook posts, and I just wanted to reach out across the miles and say, I see you, I hear you, and I'm with you. So yeah, Laura Kammermeier, and I'm the marketing manager of Birds of the World at the Cornell Lab of Ornithology. And my role is well, we're a small team, so I do a lot of things. I'm the business manager and helps handle the sales and marketing. We handle the communications, our newsletter that just went out today, and I also do things like manage some partnerships, partnership global. We've got global partnerships, which I'll get into a little bit later today, but it's really fun and inspiring work because because we're building something that's, important to conservation, and I'll get into exactly how it relates to conservation, but it's also a really cool birding tool. But yeah, I remember those days when we met many times, many years ago. I don't know if it was at Bird Fair or if it was in the United States at a festival. I don't know. Do
Yeah,
you
I
remember?
think I probably met Jesus. Well, there you go. We're live, obviously.
I
Um,
didn't hear it.
Good, because there's a doorbell ringing. We probably met maybe in Texas back in 2008 or something when I went
Oh,
to the Texas
yeah,
birthday down
yeah,
there. But
yeah.
I've known about you for a hell of a long time when you used to do your used to have a the concert the travel network
Yeah,
what's it called again?
yeah. I had an interesting past, really, just trying to make my own way in birding, and it was called Nature Travel Network.
That's it.
So Nature Travel Network was, I'd say, it was a multi-author blog that contained travel information on all the world's destinations, and I invited various writers into the stream to write about the destination. And kind of what made mine different than, say, some of the other, there's just a couple others at the time, was that it included a lot of base information on each country. So, what birds you're going to see, an overview of the destination, kind of like bringing the best of all the travel company information into one place so you could make so that you can understand the destination in isolation of any one particular company that might be selling you on it. Um, I did partner with travel companies in the development of this, so they were great partners in that. It was really fun, and I did that for some time, really when blogging was still kind of new at that time, and I only had to put it away when I started working at Cornell. And I kind of regret that still. I probably should have just hung on to it for a while. But, as you see now, it's hard to do everything on your own. But gave it the good old college try.
Yeah, I mean, that was a really successful platform because I remember at one point you must have had well over 100,000 subscribers, and it was the place to actually kind of get involved with. And also, as a writer, a lot of people actually would say, "Oh, I'm writing for the Travel Network um,
Yeah.
to get trips."
Yeah, they did. So that was also wonderful. It was like being able to hand out candy. So I had this network of writers who would work with me, and it was great because I'd get invitations for fam trips, and I'd be able to say, "Hey, do you want to do you want to take it? I'm not interested, or I can't do it. Would you like to do it?" And it was just fabulous. It was really fabulous, and I still don't think there's one site today. I don't know. You can correct me if I'm wrong, folks, but I don't know of any other site that's really doing that in the way.
Yeah, I think that vacuum has never been filled, actually. I think there's a few
Yeah.
sites that, talk about stuff, but that's the thing about this whole industry, this natural history or whatever you want to call it,
Mhm.
conservation. There's a lack of ideas. And I think if you look at similar, well, not even similar, but if you look at other sectors, it's awash with things like what you've done or even what I'm doing. But
Mhm.
in our sector, for some reason, we are like the exceptions.
I know.
And
Yeah.
it's really strange. In a way, it's good because then it makes it easier to try and sort of push something forward and actually do it.
Mhm.
But I don't understand why our sector isn't perceived as being as creative as others,
I
even though
know. Yeah, and well, of course, a lot of it has to do with there's no money in it, right? And it's interesting. It's sort of a sad truth that people who love birds and love wildlife often don't put their money behind it, right? So if I had established a cost, I don't know if anyone would have actually joined. They just want free information, right? There's this adage that we learned a long time ago, because I've done digital communications for a long time. Information wants to be free. After we started the internet, it became a thing. Information wanted to be free. And so charging for the information no longer became a sustainable thing. And instead, we charge for services that might be built upon that, or you charge with advertising or things like that. But I do, there's so many of us, who have tried, who've tried come in and out, tried doing the independent thing for a long time, and some people are more successful. Like you've done great, and it's just amazing um, to just see your work and how you've developed this community. Um, and I'd say only, money reasons allowed me to go take a full-time job, but also because this is my second time working for Cornell. It was I used to be the Project Feeder Watch lead back in, oh gosh, I started in the late 90s. And I was that for about 4 or 5 years. And then after that, my husband moved, I moved with my husband. So I kind of took on a few different roles and just was thinking that was such an amazing place. And it was doing so many good things that I wanted to be part of. And it was really hard to accept any other type of local position after that, after doing this globally important work. And so I said, I'm going to put my job on my back. I'm gonna be like a turtle. I'm just gonna carry it with me wherever I am. I'm gonna live on the breadth of my own ideas and my own basically entrepreneurialism, and find people that I want to work with and work with them. And so after that, gosh, I did some fun things. I worked with Birdwatchers Digest magazine for a couple of years, doing their web work, and that gave me a lot of experience with what you call content management systems. And then I worked for James Curry on Birding Adventures for a while, selling advertising for them. What did I do after that? I was a grant writer for a nature organization for a while. But then, the democratization of the media happened again, right? When blogging became a thing, when WordPress became a thing, when social media started, it opened up all these new opportunities for people. And
Mm,
that's when I started getting developing more of the digital marketing skills, like teaching businesses, all in nature and conservation, how to start a social media program. It was all new back then. And so that was an exciting period because I could work with these fantastic organizations, helping them do what they do best, helping them communicate with their audiences, and really just absolutely loved that and thought what it was wonderful. And so eventually, though, and I started Nature Travel Network because I got an opportunity through the magazine to go on a fam trip. Wow, this is great. And worked with James Curry. And then I was like, you know what, we need to get this online because I'm an information specialist at heart. I'm a communicator at heart. So I started trying to develop a site within WordPress where, again, a multi-author blog, bringing people on, teaching people the things I needed to know as a birder. I was, working in travel, but not educated enough about it. I wanted to know more. I wanted to read and know. So doing the process is what teaches me. That's why I love, like, there's there's a song with a lyric, everything I have, well, it's nothing till I give it to you. And that's kind of how I am with information. So
no, that's, I mean, every time I see anything going on, I know your name's behind it somewhere. I mean, that's been the case. But I mean, I remember when the champions in the flyway,
yeah,
um, the charity or the event that was happening in Israel,
yeah,
where birding, where groups of birders would sort of congregate, form teams, and basically do a sponsored bird watch for 24 hours to
right.
raise money for charity. I know you were involved in that
I
along
was.
the way.
Yeah. I did the social media and the website for Champions of the Flyway, and that was great. They raised money for conservation. And that was great working with Jonathan and Yoav during that time. And I got to go to Eilat one year. So that was fantastic. Eilat is one of that trip, that Israel trip was really one of the best birding trips I've been on. They are also memorable in their own way, but it was so unique because I'd never really done some desert travel before.
Yeah. And
And
for those, by the way, who don't know the term fam trip, it's a familiarity trip is the actual full um, explanation of that. And that's when you're invited somewhere, usually by a tourism board, to
mhm,
be familiar with some of the places they want to show you. And you've got like 5 days and it's never enough, you
yeah,
little touch there, little taste there, and what have you. Um,
yeah.
Also, just to let you know, guys, tonight is sponsored by my good friends. Actually, I'll use my finger. My good friends, Koa Sporting Optics, the manufacturer of the world-renowned Promenade series of spotting scopes, and Birds, Wildlife, and Nature, and the tour company that strives to deliver the best of birding and wildlife watching opportunities throughout the world. So that's cool. Yeah, actually, talking about birding,
Mhm.
how did you get into birding?
Hmm. Interesting. Well, I was always, since I've been born, I wanted to be a wildlife person, right? So I've always had that deep interest and went to school. I actually got a degree in aquatic ecology, probably only because I didn't meet an ornithologist there. And I knew in graduate school, though, I got my master's in aquatic ecology. In graduate school, my best friend, who's American but now living in Belgium with her husband, took me on her field trips a lot. So while she was collecting data, I got to study wood ducks, and we'd go out on canoes and check wood duck egg boxes, chuck eggs in boxes. But that was fantastic, and that was a real privilege because what's so important about birding is to have somebody with you. I know all these apps and tools are trying their best to be that ornithologist in your pocket, but it's really that companionship in the field and somebody. being able to help you understand what that shape or size is when it's, 30 or 40 feet up in a tree and it just looks black to you. It's just a shape at best. Other people try to give you those clues when you're going out with friends. So it really, I think it sparked pretty deeply there. And then I went to my water quality job took me down to Florida, and I became a regional coordinator for a volunteer citizen science project. And what we did is we collected water for lakes, and I managed volunteers, which was really fun. And then my husband's worked also, so the trailing spouse thing. So that brought us back up to New York. And the only place I could think of where I could get an environmental job from where we lived was Cornell. And oh my gosh, weren't they advertising for Project Feeder Watch? And what, I mean, and I got the job and I was quite thrilled at that possibility. And from then on, I just dug in and learned all I could. And here we are today.
Yeah, I mean, Cornell seems to be such a cool sort of cutting edge side of the birding world. Let's hear more about part of the reason, I guess the main reason why you're talking to me today,
Mhm.
um, and about that wonderful resource called Birds of the World, which I have to vouch, ladies and gentlemen, that it's absolutely fantastic. I use it all the time, and I was just saying to Laura before I pressed the record button that last night I suddenly realized that the nutcracker, which is a species of crow which is found in Europe and heading east towards Asia, but also there's the Clark's nutcracker in North America. But the one in Europe had been split three ways,
Mhm.
northern, southern, and Kashmir nutcrackers. And I quickly fired up the computer, went straight to Birds of the World, and suddenly saw all three beautifully displayed and all the information about them. And I realized that I'd taken a picture of a southern nutcracker in Taiwan and not realized. So it was a armchair tick, and I was really delighted.
Nice, great, great. Yeah, with the most recent taxonomy, I'm up about 4 ticks, so yeah, pretty good.
Good.
Yeah. So
So
should I?
yeah, you fire up, and whilst you're doing that, just to say to everyone, as I say, please like and subscribe. And if you have any questions, if you are watching this on Facebook by any chance, even though it won't matter to people in the future, please write some questions down if you got them.
All right. Do you see my whole screen? Did I
I
do
do
this right?
indeed. We do indeed.
Okay. Great. So the roadmap for today looks a little bit like this. Just a quick statement about the lab and why we created Birds of the World. And then I'm going to go into what's inside the resource and how you might find it useful. Then I'm going to discuss our partnership program and what we've done in the past few years to make it more inclusive and globally accessible. And then I'm going to end, of course, with the discount code that you get for being an Urban Birder member. So stick around. So at the Cornell Lab, we are curious about birds in the natural world. We're driven by science and technology, and we build apps and tools that inspire people to learn. And these apps allow large numbers of people to contribute data. And we analyze that data so that we can better understand birds and wildlife. We've learned that when you pair science and technology with an engaged community, we can accomplish, or we and others accomplish conservation at a much larger scale than is possible otherwise. I'm sure that many of you are familiar with Merlin Sound ID or eBird. Merlin helps you identify birds by sound and appearance. There's been 31 million downloads over the past several years, and there's about 5.2 million active users. And as of last month, eBird had collected 2 billion bird observations over the course of its 20 years. eBird had just launched. We were launching eBird back at the lab when I first worked there in early 2000. So cumulatively, when you take all of those eBird observations and plot them over time, this is what it looks like. Each dot represents one checklist submitted by one birder somewhere over the world over the course of 20 years. And I love this photo because it represents the global birding community working together on behalf of birds, because we're driven by a passion for birds and birding and a desire to save the world, and the knowledge that if we contribute in some way to science, we are helping fill in the dots that guide conservation. So 20 years on, these eBird data are offering amazing insights into bird population trends at a large scale. But unfortunately, much of what we know about bird populations isn't so great. In the United States, we've lost 1 in 4 breeding adult birds since 1970. And across North America, bird numbers have plummeted, and even among common species from every ecosystem. And this shows that there's been a huge shift in the ecosystem's ability to support basic bird life. But what factors have caused that shift? How are birds responding to them? What biological and ecological clues can help us develop a solution? And that's where Birds of the World comes in. It's a collaborative science website that pulls all the world's ornithological expertise into one globally accessible hub. So if you think about it as the world's largest authoritative ornithology database. Within Birds of the World, you can find comprehensive species accounts that describe the life history of every bird. And these accounts summarize all that is known about a species. They contain big data analyses that reveal population trends, data from field experiments, and DNA data that helps us understand evolutionary relationships, and weight and beak and other morphological measurements that have been acquired in the hand. And so taken together, this information feeds our collective understanding of the symptoms and the drivers of environmental change. And importantly, the birds, and you can quantify the birds' subtle reactions to that change. And so when you pull all this knowledge, strategic conservation actions can be developed. So again, when we bring all of this world's collective understanding together, we and scientists can work and benefit from the same baseline scientific information, no matter what language we speak, what journals we read, or what our birding experience has been. So an ornithologist studying seabirds in Chile, for example, can benefit from the work of an ecologist in China, who can benefit from the work of a researcher in Christchurch and across the world, all points northwest, east, south. So this means that there's no need to recreate the wheel, and conservation can advance more quickly when we're dealing with the same pool of information. So that explains the why behind Birds of the World. But it's a fun, informative, engaging for keen bird watchers, right? So I want to explain how you will find it useful, what you'll find in it, and whether you have an interest in science or not. So as a birder, right, there's several important things to know about birds. And this is, as a young birder, I was just grasping for this kind of information, and I really wish I had it all in one place. In what region is the bird generally found? When does it come and go? What does it sound and look like? What habitat does it live in? How rare is it for this place and time? So Birds of the World has all this information and more, and in quite a lot of detail for many species. Each life history account has the same clean, reliable interface, and it contains up to 90 different articles that cover the bird's life history. It has curated multimedia, range maps, scientific illustrations, the latest taxonomy. We also maintain a common names database, which basically means you get to put the common names of the birds in your preferred language. And there are 90 different language options for the common names. In most cases, I mean, in the vast majority of cases, all the text stays in the body of the text stays in English, but the common names can be in your own language. We even have one for English IOC for those people that are still interested in the IOC. But there are many options to choose from there. All of the lab's apps are deeply integrated, eBird with Macaulay Library and Birds of the World. And so our integrations with eBird allow us to make these simple distribution maps, right? So every species has its own map that has been integrated from eBird data. Birds of the World also features a growing selection of these sophisticated data visualizations that are developed by our eBird status and trends team. The map on our left shows distribution and seasonal abundance of the black-pole warbler across its range. And the map on the right, let's do that again because it's fun to watch. The map on the right depicts the migration of the black-pole warbler from its wintering grounds in northern South America, all the way across the Caribbean, in the southern United States, and all the way up to Alaska and Canada. So these maps are really special. They're something, and it's taken that 20-some years of data, of eBird data and contributions by people like you to be able to make them. About 2,000 species currently have these types of maps in them, but with many more to come, we hope. Their existence in Birds of the World depends on the volume of eBird observations that we have across its range, and one of the reasons why we do promote eBird as a tool worldwide, because it tells us so much more about birds than we could ever know before. Right, I'm clicking. So yeah, Birds of the World also features extensive photo galleries, and these include photos, videos, and sound recordings, which have been submitted by eBirders and curated by our authors. So this allows you to see the most representative photos of males, females, juveniles across all plumages across the seasons. So this is, of course, extremely useful when you're trying to nail down an ID or refine a sound that you heard in the field. And when possible, our images are extensively captioned, and as they describe the plumage, the behavior, or the habitat in each photo, or the behavior, yeah. These are also useful for understanding bird ID and behavior. The galleries also feature representative sound recordings, and there's an entire section in the text that is devoted to vocal behaviors, which explain the type and the meaning behind every song and call. So this really gives you a visceral, multi-sensory understanding of the bird when you understand all of these things together. So more than 11,000 birds are represented in Birds of the World. Of course, currently the eBird checklist is about 11,167 birds. And Birds of the World also includes two overviews of 251 bird families. This content is amazing, but it can always also be overwhelming. So if you want to examine all the birds in your region, just head over to the species page and use the regional filter to focus in on the birds near you or at some destination that you're going to be heading to. So in addition to all this content, Birds of the World provides free online webinars that cover a number of science and birding topics, and these are hosted by yours truly. A lot of international interest. Each webinar draws in people from 80 or 90 countries, so we're really loving the interest in that. So building the world's largest and most complete ornithological database depends on a generous feedback loop. On the one hand, we need to gather quality data from regional experts. On the other, we need to nurture the readers that support and depend our work. And we've taken several measures over the past few years to make Birds of the World as globally accessible as possible. The first one was big. We made it an open access resource across the global south. And these are the areas depicted in green: South America, Africa, and the Middle East. Though we continue Birds of the World's long tradition of being a subscription-based resource, we believe that open access promotes readership and usage in these areas of high biodiversity and financial disparity. We also did it to enable more contributions from the experts in these areas. So our dream is to be open access everywhere, but for now, every dollar we get goes back into supporting the technology and the people behind it. But this open access has really opened major doors for us and for others. And it's also important to know that Birds of the World is not a static resource. If you see an account that is outdated today, it might not be tomorrow. We're aggressively tackling the problem of updating the resource via an expanding network of authors and global partnerships. So we're collaborating with both individuals and organizations to collect regional expertise and to address knowledge gaps that it might exist in the resource. So the blue areas are where we have existing partners, one or more, And the yellow is the area we're currently developing partnerships as of now. So far, more than 40 partners have signed on to be part of this effort. And these include top ornithology research institutes, single species research groups, and NGOs with avian science capacity. There are a lot of ways we work with partners. The program depends on the partner's capacity and expertise. Some of these partners only have a single species focus, others go across. But we work with them in any way that they can, that they'd like to be part of the project. And once our partners are onboarded, they're asked to develop a regional network of contributors who update and revise species accounts because they know the players and the partners best in the region. And of course, the people living in the region know the birds the best. And this partnership model has tripled the pace of science updates to Birds of the World in just a few years. So Birds Caribbean, for example, has revised dozens of accounts for us. BirdCount India has revised more than 55. Rock Chile has revised more than 90 accounts, and so on and so on. And we're hoping that this goes on for a long time. It's a distributed leadership model that allows partners to take a vested interest in the program so that they can archive their natural history, so that they can use the resource to educate their citizens as well as their students and their professors, and so that they can do the research and guide conservation and ultimately, hopefully, have an effect on regulators that might have the greatest impact on what's going on there. So we deeply appreciate partners for their energy and enthusiasm for the project. So partners are doing much more than writing accounts, though. They're integrating data from non-English journals for inclusion in Birds of the World. This is an exciting project, and I know Rock Chile has translated about the entirety of 4 different ornithology journals into Birds of the World. So it's super exciting. So in this way, they're helping to bridge the knowledge gaps between language, culture, and our resource. Our partners are also helping us coordinate on-site workshops in different regions of the world. This is one in Brazil, I think, and one in, maybe it was Bolivia on the bottom right. Can't remember. And at these workshops, we're providing training in literature reviews and scientific writing, and hopefully contributing and building the next generation of users and contributors. So partners have helped us achieve AI-assisted translations as well. Last year, we translated the entirety of Birds of the World into Spanish, and just last week, we translated Birds of the World into Portuguese. So this brings a new audience, and it multiplies the usage opportunities of the resource. Multilingualism is essential to global accessibility and ultimately local conservation. And whomever said English is the language of science was naive. And in the next year, we were looking to have French and simplified Chinese, believe it or not. So we're really excited about these translations, and our partners in these regions have just said it's making a big difference. And in fact, dropping the paywall and having Spanish translations has been great. We've seen increased site usage, increased education and knowledge transfer, improved local decision-making, and ultimately better conservation outcomes. So that's been just very exciting to be able to give so much to the people who are helping us build the resource. We're just a conduit for the information. That's how I see Cornell. So I hope this explains the big idea behind Birds of the World and emphasizes that collective effort that it is to keep this enterprise going. More than 2,000 authors have contributed to our accounts. This involves, teams of editors and subject matter experts and partners and copy editors, and it requires a full stack technology platform to keep it running. But this network has allowed us to revise or fully update 25% of the world's bird species, which is a lot. And we've added thousands of curated maps and multimedia assets to Birds of the World, and we've released these annual taxonomy updates every October. So it is not static. We're growing and growing, and we do this. This acceleration of content updates is vital because the world is changing fast, and the scientists need to work together from that same body of information in this rapidly changing world. We are always looking for new contributors. So if it could be easy as submitting your observations and media via eBird or by contributing your bird expertise. So we're always happy to speak with anyone who's interested in contributing, and we'd love to have you. So if you are already one of these tiny dots, an eBirder who submitted a checklist, thank you, thank you, thank you. Thanks for working with us on behalf of birds. You're contributing to meaningful science and making a real world difference. And together, David, we can save the world, right?
Absolutely.
We're working on it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's fascinating. I've learned a few bits more about the actual resource. And one question I had, which you've just answered, was, how can people actually contribute? Because I noted that when I look through my habits when it comes to watching, by the way, are you finished with your
Yeah, should I turn it off? Let me just remind people of the coupon, okay? So the Urban Birder, you can save 50% of subscription if you are a member of David's Urban Birder team. So
great,
yeah, stop share.
good. I am a professional anorak, and when I started looking through Birds of the World, I was particularly drawn to the section where it has all the families of the world, and
Mhm.
with each family you see a little picture of each
Mhm.
species.
Mhm.
I think, wow, I didn't realize there were so many different types of flycatcher, and for me, I'm just fascinated, and I started sort of looking into the ones that I never heard of.
Mhm.
Some of them, are thankfully common, but most of them, the ones I haven't heard of anyway, were, rare or hardly ever seen. And it kind of makes you think, wow, I want to get out to Indonesia and look for these
Yeah.
particular birds. Um,
Let guys respond to that. So what's amazing about being able to see that online like that is a couple things. I remember my first trip to Ecuador, and I didn't know a lot about the birds of Ecuador, right? So I bought that book that's about 2 or 3 inches thick. And I love tanagers and I love hummingbirds, of course. So I'm trying to go through the book, making dog earring on all these species that I think I'm going to find somewhere in Ecuador. And I'm trying to make drawings on the plane. And I'm trying to like absorb a vast amount of information. It was an impossible task, right? But a resource like Birds of the World kind of helps you see that amazing biodiversity within each species, right? If you go to the family account for tanagers, for example, it'll make so you see the biodiversity of those species, but also allows you to do the research that you need in order to advance your understanding before a big trip. So you're not cramming on the book with the book on the way there. So.
why is it that the take up for this seems to be kind of in the new world? And I noticed in the graph that you showed in terms of readership, Europe and Australasia seem to be tailing. Why is that, do you think?
Maybe because the technology began here first, and with Cornell, right? We have a very our history is born as a university project, right? Arthur Allen, who started the lab, was just a professor in a laboratory, and he one day he goes out, and this is the early 1930s, right? He goes out to the lab, out at its door, and puts Lab of Ornithology your ornithology lab on the outside, right? There's just one guy. And from there, now we went regional and then we went national and then we went continental and now we're thinking more globally because of the kind of stuff that we do technology wise has a role to play in conservation and in global conservation. So maybe that does that answer the question if I understand it correctly?
Yeah, I guess I mean it's like I've noticed. I mean, I think eBird, Merlin, and obviously Birds of the World are
Hmm.
amazing resources, and I think they've revolutionized birding per se. Definitely, um,
Hmm.
that's without doubt. But I noticed that certainly where I come from in Britain, we seem to be a bit slow in the uptake. eBird, for example, took a long time. I used to speak to people. Do you know about eBird? What's eBird? And
Hmm.
even now, um, I, I guess people don't seem to use it that much. I mean, when I
Yeah.
go birding in the UK and I use eBird, you know,
Yeah.
there doesn't seem to be many people in Britain. But then when I go to Spain, everyone's doing it. So
Hmm.
it's kind of, you know, I don't understand why that's happened. And with this particular resource, I think it's for me, it's kind of third in line because obviously you had Merlin and eBird, and I think this is the next wave coming,
Hmm.
which people obviously in the new world have cottoned onto immediately. And I think,
Yeah.
you know, I have to say, and as I said at the top of this program, that for me, this is a really great resource for me. It's been a game changer in terms of just instantly being able to look up something that, like for example, the Nutcracker thing I
Hmm.
spoke about. Straight away, you see pictures, and what I love about the actual um, resource, apart from the fact that I can look through all the families of birds, is that I can listen to some of the calls that I've never heard of before. And it's just incredible. Um, I just wonder how it's going to
I'll tell
sort
you
of.
what. Yeah. I think it's because you need strong ambassadors in each region for it to propagate. I think that's all it comes down to. And so earlier there was a different, and still I think bird tracks is a popular way to monitor your bird populations here, right? And so if the major players in the UK are committed to that, they're not being that strong ambassador for the project. Maybe they hadn't seen the value yet, which is fine. There's room for everything out there. Um, we've been making better gains, I think, just by demonstrating, but it's just it's the circle of influence. It's the power of influence from both individuals and organizations, but also the demonstration of what the data can do. And I think that map that I showed you with all the black map with all the gold dots is really a um, powerful thing that says, oh, yeah, and now the maps that we can make. And again, we can only make those where eBird data is abundant over many years because you can't fake it with maps, right? You can't work on no data. So there has to be a critical mass of data. And so what we're seeing in the United States, for example, our government, the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, is now using eBird data as basically the foundational data, bird population data that they use in order to determine bird populations, whether they're going up or down. And it took a long time to get there, but we're there now. So, and other governments are as well. I mean, and it's through the help of the local scientists and nonprofits that shepherd it there, that have that influence.
Will this ever be available in some format on an app? So, because when you talked about being on a plane, instead of bringing a big fat book
Hmm.
on Bolivia or whatever,
Right?
would you be able to
Yeah.
sort of negate all of that and have an app where you can actually say, right, just pull up all the birds of Colombia or
Wouldn't
whatever?
that be amazing? So, an app is not likely in the next decade. I won't say never, but one of the reasons this is so vast and it takes so much, is so dynamic with the database information, but also it has to be updated frequently. And so when you make an app, it's one thing to make an app, and it's another to maintain it. Um, and so maybe someday when we have more time and the investment to make, we'll get into that. But primarily it's a long form content with, the millions of photos um, that we think is better delivered online. Now, who knows what's going to happen in the future, right? AI is making massive changes to what people expect online and what they go for, what resources they use. And we plan to um, tepidly, advance with it. We're not going anywhere, but it might force some changes in the future that make an app more reasonable. Who knows? I don't really know.
On a more personal level, do you get annoyed when you see, talking about AI, when you look through the pages of social media, like on Facebook, and you see people masquerading these
Mhm.
sites, and they've got these AI birds.
Oh,
I'm
it's
like,
terrible. It's terrible. It's just terrible. You can always tell them. And I hope that we can always tell which one is it. But there's a lot of people being fooled, right? There's so many people being fooled by it. And I think we're in a dangerous place, to be honest, with this AI because you can fake anything. A year ago, I saw them AI, whole species of major world figures, like the Pope, for example, coming out against somebody's government, probably ours, and it looks so real. I was like, wow, the Pope saying that? No, the Pope wasn't saying that, and so wasn't saying that. So the video that it impersonates people, birds. It's not. We're interested in it because it's so powerful, okay? But not when it comes to generating photos or generating content. But we used AI to assist in the translation, right? So translations is a great tool. And if you use human power to review those translations, which we do, and that's where our partners come in, they speak the language so they can see how well that tool was used. That's how we accomplish those translations. So there's some real bona fide uses of AI, but there's a lot of junk.
you think that AI could be used in this instance to imagine species that have no photographs? So I noticed that on the actual Birds of the World list of birds, because I'm crazy about looking through all the birds, there's certain species that have no image because
Yeah,
they haven't been seen for X amount of time or maybe even extinct. Could
yeah.
AI imagine these species? Could AI even be used to animate some of these birds?
Wow. Yeah, I bet you they could. And so maybe by looking at a number of skins, if any exist, with some photographs of, older photographs, maybe something could fill in the dots. I don't want to encourage that. I don't think that's something that we could do, that we would do, but I think it's possible. So I'll leave that to somebody else.
Is it possible to collate your life list using Birds of the World?
Yes and no. It's a good question. So if you are an eBirder, your data, your personal data is connected to the website. So it's just another level of integration that we do. So for example, when I go to Uganda, well, I look at the birds of Uganda, right? And I open up Shoebill. There's a little blue dot or what we call an eBird badge that shows me that I've seen Shoebill. And there's a photography badge that shows that, oh, I submitted an image of Shoebill as well. And then I can actually click on the eBird and it calls up those couple of checklists where I saw shoebill. And of course, that's amazing because when it comes to such an iconic species like that, I want to remember every detail. And so I think that's a really cool feature for bird watchers. And you can't export it or anything at this point. It's all in eBird. So eBird is really your lifeless maintenance tool. And we just reflect some of it in Birds of the World. So it's like bringing your life list together with the stories of the birds. And I think of it as containing my legacy, my birding legacy, right? I've got my children, I have my friends, and I have my birding legacy, which I love. And all together, this makes a story.
That is interesting talking about birding legacy because I've been thinking about it well, not all the time, but every now and again I think I've got a load of notebooks filled with notes of all the birds I've seen. I've got an electronic or I've got an online footprint of
Hmm.
stuff that I've seen. And where's that gonna go when I join the birds in the sky? You know?
You could do something with it, right? You could very soon you're going to be able to take a photo of each page. You can't avoid that. But you'll be able to upload it with an AI tool and say create a book. Bang, done. And maybe even read it and add some words. That would be cool. But notebooks themselves, step back from that. Notebooks themselves are so, are so valuable, right? It's like a piece of actual, real, authentic history that we all carry and have, and so much more important, I think, than this digital world sometimes. Digital is convenient always, but having that physical presence, and I am I bird, therefore I am. How about that?
And talking about AI, I've, obviously I'm a sort of, I've been involved in this whole scene for some time now, and I've seen things develop from the days when we just had a pair of binoculars and if you
Mhm.
like it, you had a telescope, which wasn't that great, to now, you can buy amazing binoculars, amazing telescope, and you've got all these online resources to help you, including eBird. I've noticed one of the binocular manufacturers
Mhm.
has put out a pair of binoculars that claims to be able to identify birds as you see them using technology from Cornell. Um, I'm not asking you to rate them because you may be involved with them, but do you think that will help people learn about nature, or will
Mm.
it be part of the instant gratification society that we live in, whereby people won't bother learning, they'll just pick up a pair of binoculars. Oh,
Yeah,
there's a blackpoll warbler. Oh, there's a whatever, and
yeah.
not think about why it is what it is. If it is, it is. If it is what it is.
I mean, that's an extremely good question, and I don't think I can completely answer it. I know that when Cornell weighed this possibility, we thought about, well, there's every type of bird watcher out there, right? Not everybody is going to grow up to be a highly motivated birder, right? The person who wants to do the work. But a lot of people are just casual bird watchers and would like to put a name to it. So I think the thing that we all shared, we want to put a name to it. I mean, it's just like, what did I see? So I can carry at least that with me, even if it's only fleeting. Um, but I think that if you're trying to build a world of naturalists and people who really care and take time to take the time to nurture nature, care for nature, learn nature, I think that it might not be the way. I definitely want to put a field guide into their hands. I still have, field my field guides. I still refer to them. I love the online stuff. I do love it. I do love it. I've always been online, right? I'm extremely online, but the books matter too, and the work. It's like, it's the treasure hunt. That's I think that's what unites bird watchers the most and birders is the treasure hunt, right? You never know what you're going to find. There's something everywhere, and you just walk through life collecting these beautiful things. It's fantastic.
Do you, is the scene in America, North America, is there more birders now?
Yeah, there are. I mentioned that there's been 31 million downloads of Merlin, and I'd say, well, I haven't seen the map, the concentration map, but I would guess that most of them are in the US. And when I got into this business many years ago, we won't quantify, there was 20 million bird watchers, and we know that because of a government survey that they did. A very large government survey said there was about 20 million, 19 million bird
And
watchers.
that 20 million ranges from people looking at their backyards to people
Mhm.
climbing a mountain to look for a particular species.
Right. Yeah, yeah. Um, but now I think it went up to 60 or 90 million, one of those. I've got to refresh myself on that number, but it's quite high. It's quite high. It's at least tripled and maybe more than that. So, I mean, COVID did amazing things for birding, right? I mean, think about the people who tuned into you and your program. Um, and Birds of the World had the benefit of launching during COVID, right? So we launched March 4th and everything shut down March 13th. And certainly by March 20th, everything was just and really we just kept going through the roof every month, tripling. It was really fantastic when people were like, oh yeah. And although that interest hasn't, that the volume, the trajectory hasn't sustained, they still have this core group of people who like, yeah, they've discovered birds. They want to be, they just want access to that kind of information all the time. So yeah, it's wonderful, isn't it? And so the lab is focused on engaging, like what's the next step, right? You use Merlin. What can you do for your local neighborhood? What can you do to make a difference for birds? And that's always me and what I come back to. And, I live on a small patch of land here, but I feed the birds, but I also am making home for the birds. During winter, all I'm thinking about is if I'm going to put up a wood duck box or if I'm going to put up a kestrel box or what plants I'm going to grow. And I've tried a lot of things. I failed at some. And I've been here 5 years on this property and now I have to sort of redo it again. Boxes are falling apart and some of the trees failed and my pollinators are doing pretty good, but I did lose a lot. So anyway, it's just this constant thing about how do you make the world better, right? How do you make the world better? Um, and it is worth it. I want to say something about, in this climate change is terrible. And sometimes it feels like we lose hope, like we're fighting a losing battle, but we each need to be involved no matter what. You have to improve your little patch around you. You have to hold hope for those species. And in your lifetime, know that you've touched somebody through sharing your birding or the birds near you, giving them something to return to raise families in and things like that.
Yeah,
I'm
great
getting
work.
passionate about birds because I love them.
Yeah, well, great words of advice. I mean, and I've read somewhere that the tourism side of birding has really skyrocketed. I mean, it's the biggest element of nature tourism now. And I meet so many people. I met someone the other day actually who says that she's not a birder, yet she spent a week birding, on a birding tour in Spain, and she's thinking about going on a cruise somewhere else. There seems to be a lot more people who are getting into the whole sort of idea of watching birds. And I think things like Birds of the World really does help your imagination because you look through the pages, you see these beautiful pictures, you think, I need to go and see
Mhm.
a bird.
Yeah, you do. Just you have to. And luckily, the quality of people's cameras are better and their photography skills are amazing. And so it pulls in the best of those photos. And yeah, travel is amazing. I obviously used to do a lot of it and a little bit less now because I've been focused on this role and happy with nurturing and tending the birds in the backyard. Um, and but it's a way to bring you closer to a wildness.
Yeah,
And that's I think what we all need to maintain whatever way we can. Not everybody can live on a little patch. Somebody, might be an apartment dweller or, just it's a way to connect.
absolutely. What would be your most favorite bird in the whole wide world?
Yeah. Honestly, my trip to Spain, which you know well, the vultures, the vultures. I love vultures so much. Like they're insane. They're like people. I want to know them. And each one has its own personality. And when I climbed, oh, I always forget the name and I don't know why, but
On Fragway?
no, it was east by the bottom of the Pyrenees. There's like this egg rock kind of.
Oh, oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. But we climbed to the top of that and there's vultures above, vultures below. And I remember one, the sun is shining on the back of a griffin vulture and it kind of we caught we caught our eyes. The sun was gleaming in his eyes and he looked at me, it seemed. And maybe that did it. Maybe watching the two Egyptian vultures circle down with their claws, with their claws engaged. They're beautiful and they're suffering too. And but I love them. I love them. And in a little plug for the webinars, we're going to be featuring Chris Bowden, the RSPB um, Endangered Species Coordinator Director in February. So we're going to do a vulture webinar, which I've been wanting to do for many years.
Fantastic. And I can guess, possibly guess, but if you could be anywhere in the world right now, where would you be?
Hmm, that's a really good question. I want to give me a second here. I mean, I always think about going back to Spain, and I really want to take my family to Africa because when I was there, of course, it was always my passion. I've been interested in chimps and everything since I was 5, right? Well, really, just since I could think. But when I was there, I was like, oh my gosh, this is Eden. This is Eden, in terms of the wildlife that's still there. And we have killed back these kind of creatures um, in every part of the world, and they're these magnificent, huge, iconic creatures still roam, and it's so important. And I just got to do gorilla trip and saw chimpanzees as well on that, so that was life changing. And when I really want to relax, I just watch gorilla videos. Some people do dogs and kittens. I like gorilla videos because they're great moms. They're great family members, They're so gentle.
Yeah, I've never seen them before actually, but I'm sure they are
Mhm.
fascinating creatures. Well, listen, I think we've kind of come to
Full
a
circle.
yeah, we come to full circle because we discussed some great subjects within this whole idea of birds of the world, which is the acronym is BOW, bow. I say bow wow, but
Can I borrow that?
but Laura, I'd like to thank you very much for sparing your time today to talk to us about this wonderful thing, and of course, please guys check it out because it's a fantastic resource.
Yeah. Yeah, just a reminder that Urban Birder members get the 50% off. So head over to the website and the code is the Urban Birder. So, all right.
Excellent. Excellent. And
Um,
sorry.
yeah, just wonderful to sit down with you. I just really, miss you. Hope to see you soon.
Yeah, let's make that happen for sure next year. Thank you all the Zoomers here tonight. And thank anyone that was watching on FaceTime, sorry, on Facebook even. And also keep watching In Conservation with. There's loads of great interviews. There's over 200, I think, if you look at my YouTube page, which is called Urban Birder. And we've got some others coming up, including speaking to the venerable Stephen Moss, the writer, broadcaster, and that will be in December. But for those people watching in the future, don't worry about it. It will be on the list. So thank you very much again. And until we all meet again, keep looking up.